Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Colledge Talk #Summer Planning, which is a part of our college admissions literacy series, a series dedicated to bringing students and families better access to higher education and better information about college admissions. I'm Tim Kent, the admissions manager at Colledge, and we are thrilled to have so many of you joining us remotely tonight. Let's start with a couple of little notes before we really get going. This session is being recorded, and we will send the recording out to all of you. So we encourage you to be present throughout tonight's conversation. And if you didn't sign up through Eventbrite, but would like the recording sent to you, we're putting a link into the comment box now. So please take a second to fill out the form to make sure that you get your copy. Additionally, we ask that you hit like if you're finding this useful so that we know how we're doing. And finally, I want to encourage all of you, as questions come into your head, feel free to pop them into the comments box as we go. We'll be monitoring the chat box throughout the evening, and we're excited to get to as many questions as we can at the end of our conversation tonight. These past few years, the college admissions landscape has been as competitive as ever. While we continue to adjust and work to understand the new trends that we're seeing, many of them driven by the COVID-19 pandemic, one thing that has become really more crucial than ever is the importance of planning, and specifically planning ahead and utilizing those summer months wisely. So tonight, we'll be taking a deep dive into how to use those summer months to make your college application stand out, including pre-college summer programs, summer strategies, and of course, getting ready for college applications. But before we dive into our main topic for the evening, I'd like to launch a quick poll to gauge the subjects that are most on your mind heading into tonight's conversation. We're going to go ahead and launch the poll now. Okay, so in terms of what you're thinking about, some options, an update on what we've seen so far in the 2021 and 22 cycle, how to know whether a summer program is right for you, how using summer months will pay off in college admissions, summer service learning and volunteer work ideas, and please, if you have another thought, something that's on your mind, write it in the chat box as well. Excellent. It seems like across the board, there's a variety of interests here. Some of the stuff that we are really excited to get to during our conversation tonight. So thank you so much for sharing your answers with us before we begin. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Kelsey, our Director of Admissions Services, who's going to share a little bit more about our team and program at Colledge. Take it away, Kelsey.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tim. And thanks for getting us kind of thinking already a little bit about summer. So I want to first just introduce anybody who's here tonight to Colledge, to us. For any of you out there that don't already know us, we are a private college admissions advisory group, a team of experienced admissions professionals who work really closely with students and their families, really anywhere on their path to higher education. What I love about this work is that while, of course, it helps students identify and apply to best right fit colleges, and what could be more exciting than that, is the fact that I've seen so many students really ignite their deeper potential through the process of inquiry that this kind of work and the work that we do really pulls out of each and every student. So what you see here on this slide is some really exciting data that we've gathered over the last 5 or so years. First of all, one that we're incredibly proud of. Our seniors right now are killing it, and historically we've seen about 89% of our students, 89.6%, excuse me, get into at least one of their top 3 schools, which is pretty incredible, considering how unpredictable and competitive the landscape has become and is continuing to become. So a little bit about this table. This is, like I said, data gathered over the last several years about each school's individual admit rate on the whole in early action, early decision, regular decision, all of it, and our admit rate, how we've historically done with our students at each individual school. So you'll see some really exciting numbers. For example, at Boston University, their overall most recent school admit rate, at least as it's published, was around 19%, whereas we've gotten students into Boston University at a much higher rate of around 69%. Even at schools like USC, we've seen some success around 40%, and even UPenn, really tough school to get into, we've seen a higher admit rate of around 13%. And that's because we are so student centric, right? We really do focus on the fit. And that's really why you see these higher numbers. It's not because we're magicians. We couldn't get every single student out there into these schools with these higher rates, certainly not. But when there's real fit and a student is able to identify that and then show it to the school that's excited about that student as well, that's when you see those admit rates start to open up. So just wanted to kind of give a little bit of background for anybody that doesn't know us well before launching into some of the things about tonight. So Tim is going to get us started with what I'm sure is on everybody's mind. What are the pitfalls?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, Kelsey. I mean, it's such exciting data, and to see some of the awesome schools that our students have gotten into this cycle, and the news is still coming in, has just been tremendous. So thank you for sharing. So yeah, let's get started here. Before we get too deep into kind of our agenda for the evening, I want to pause and start us off with kind of the 5 most common mistakes when thinking about summer planning. And these are things that we'll talk about and help you have some information and resources about how to avoid these mistakes as you work through these summers. So the first one is missed deadlines. In order to kind of avoid it and really think about this in the right way, is that you really want to identify summer programs and opportunities more generally that you're interested in early on, and then think about a calendar. What's your family travel going to look like? Are there sports that need to be accounted for? And then making a plan and setting internal deadlines to make sure that you've had the time to gather any documents, if it's an application, fill out registration forms, do any kind of short essays or short answer questions, and then submit them there. The number 2 most important piece, and something to know too about these deadlines, just going back to number 1, is that, a lot of these programs, they release their information right around now. So you should be checking, websites here to make sure that you have the information and know kind of what the deadlines are. But some of these deadlines can be as early as February and even, early March to apply for these programs. So make sure that you're looking at those websites now. And if that deadline is February, it's time to begin the work to plan and see if it's right for you. Okay, and number 2 is underestimating summer. It can really fly by. Now, of course, we want to make sure, summer is always a time for fun, for relaxation, for unwinding, for some travel, hopefully, if the pandemic allows, but it can also really fly by. And so if you don't kind of take advantage of that opportunity and schedule early, then all of a sudden, you're in July, you're in early August, and the start of school is right around the corner, and you feel like you've missed that chance. So definitely don't underestimate that, even though it feels like there's a big period of time, that it really can fly by. Number 3 is, thinking about what you're doing with your summer. It's a lack of depth. It's really important, for you students out there and parents as well, to think about what your interests are and how to connect those interests and passions to extracurriculars and programs that that can build on those, so that you can build a strong relationship with organizations and activities that you're doing, and also think about how that passion might translate into the college field or landscape. So thinking about that depth, is really important. And we think, we've seen that a lot of folks make the mistake that it's important to just fill out as many, extracurricular activities as you can and just have it be a full, robust list, even if it's just you doing 1 hour for 1 week a year. But ultimately, the students that have a few activities that they participate in with real depth and consistency comes across a lot stronger. And so thinking about the summer and how you can connect that, if you have something, that you're already doing during the school year, utilize that extra time over the summer to actually put more hours in a community organization, or maybe signing up for a program, or vice versa. If you've had kind of an interest or a curiosity, think about building up. Maybe it's a camp that you went to as a kid and there's an opportunity for you to be a camp counselor or do a CIT program so that you can show that you have kind of that loyalty to the organization and to that passion. Number four, speaking of trying to uncover where that depth lies, is not enough self-exploration, but we really want to emphasize that that should come sort of in the early part of the high school career, so that then on the back end, sophomore and junior year in particular, you can really kind of focus on those things that you care about. So that summer exploration really in ninth grade is the key area to think about, okay, where are some initial passions, interests, and how can I do, getting my feet in the water a little bit here to see, what it's actually like to do one of these, a program in writing. If you've had an initial interest in writing, does it really move you and you want to keep going? Or maybe, the intensity, you're like, oh, not so much. I think I want to try something else. And finally, number five, checking the boxes. And what this is really all about is kind of planning your summers and activities based on what you think is going to look good on an application, or what an admissions officer wants to see, or what you've heard from a family friend or someone else who got in. This is what you have to do. It will come across that way, that you're doing it kind of because you think it looks great and not because it's actually something that you care about and that you authentically want to get involved in. So follow your passion, follow your interest, and don't, sort of follow just whatever the pre-prescribed method you think is going to kind of help you along the way, because ultimately that is different for every person. Success in summer looks different for everybody.
And that's such great advice, Tim. Thank you for saying that, because I often say to students, the whole authenticity piece that you may have heard about from the college side is not just kind of the name of the game. It's actually the entire thing. Colleges are looking for real students who have their own interests, their own quirks, their own struggles, their own passions and joys. And so they get really excited when they see something that looks really authentic, right? And so that's where this checking the boxes mistake comes in. And believe me, when you're reading back to back, hundreds of applications, it's pretty clear when somebody is just doing something because they think that they're supposed to, or it's the thing that's going to get them into college, and when they're doing it because of it's tethered to their hearts. So that's such great advice, and wanted to really highlight it. Now, I know one thing that is really on a lot of people's minds is not just summer planning, but how much the pandemic has changed college admissions. It's been an incredible couple of years, right? Mostly for harder. And it's brought a ton of changes to the world of college admissions, and a lot of unpredictability, even from how it went last year and the trends we saw last year to everything that we're seeing this year. Colleges right now are in the middle of their second fully virtual admission cycle, and we're starting to see some early trends really start to emerge as we start to see the early decision applicant answers, the yeses and the nos and the maybes come out, and the early action ones. And what we're kind of predicting, and what we're already starting to see, is that colleges are going to focus even more on the transcript, on that rigor. And so Tim is going to kind of dive in with us for a moment into some of the trends that we're seeing these last couple of post-pandemic years, and what we're predicting for the future.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kelsey. So, what you're seeing here are these two pie charts that depict kind of how admissions decisions were made pre-pandemic and how, we gather that they're being made now. One thing to kind of note about this, and some of you may have heard this term, certainly if you've come to some of our other talks, is the idea of holistic review in the admissions process. And what that means is that there's no real one golden ticket, in a sense, even with something like the transcript and grades, as to being like a make or break. Admission offices are really trying to make sure that they are getting an understanding of the full picture of a student and an applicant. And so all of these things play a factor. All of these things are meaningful in the application, but clearly here you can see Pre-pandemic, the transcript mattered significantly, just like it does now. But you can see test scores at 20% is a pretty big and sizable chunk of the pie. But now that we're in a test optional, test flexible, even test free landscape, you can see where it's gone to now, 6%. And what that means is that you've got even more weight on the transcript, but you've also got added weight kind of across the board with essays, demonstrated interest, and letters of recommendation. And something kind of to think about, well, okay, how does summer play into this? It actually plays into a lot of these pieces. So for example, with essays, you can really have meaningful experiences over the summer that can translate into a fantastic college essay. So let's say you do a really cool international exchange program, and Kelsey's going to talk about the importance of journaling later, but you spend a lot of time journaling and kind of recording your experience. You have kind of an initial outline for a fantastic essay right there for you by the time you hit junior year. Demonstrated interest, having time to really think about, okay, what are the schools that I'm interested in, doing the research and maybe getting on their radar earlier in the summer. That's going to help too. And then finally, with involvement, you don't see any change here, but there's a little more nuance to that. There is, a little bit of change because everything really has shifted. And so without those test scores, you are going to see more importance. But the reason that it does hold a little bit static is because admission officers, they want to make sure that they're flexible, understanding that there's places and situations due to the pandemic where students aren't able to have the same level of involvement in activities as their peers, and they're trying to create that equity across the board. So you can see that, significant differences have been made here, and we're predicting that the transcript is going to continue to weigh heavy, and essays as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for that walkthrough, Tim. And I know that a lot of people, we've kind of talked a little bit, Tim's just gone through these two pie charts and kind of addressed a little bit about, how schools are, kind of adjusting now that they don't have required tests. But I do want to address the question on everybody's mind, which is, okay, well, what about testing? So we have this fantastic slide that was put together by our colleagues over at Compass Education Group, which is a really fantastic SAT, ACT, and generally tutoring company. And they gather a lot of fantastic data throughout their years. This is a chart of data about how schools looked at, or at least the outcomes of how schools looked at students who submitted tests versus students who did not submit tests. So you can see here that this light blue kind of liney filling is students who did not submit any test. And you can see that this solid medium blue line here is that it indicates the students did submit a test. So you can see here at, for example, Northeastern in the early round, and this is last year's numbers because we don't have them all in for this year yet, there was literally no advantage, right? They were completely even in who they admitted to the school, who they offered a spot at Northeastern, between people who submitted tests, people who did not submit tests. And you can see there's a number of schools up here, Swarthmore, Vanderbilt, even USC, where it's pretty equitable, it's pretty close in the numbers. And then you can see on this other end, there are some schools that, clearly, at least in some way, really offered more students who did submit tests spots. Now, a couple of little notes about that, and some of this you'll see Davidson, Emory, Georgia Tech, these are all schools that are more East Coast than Southern. And so these are schools that maybe the regional applicants who are, the majority of applicants at these schools, they probably had more opportunities to take tests than we did, for example, here in the Los Angeles area where nobody could really get a test last year. And if you didn't get a test before the pandemic hit, you were mostly out of luck. So there is a little bit of that there with regional reasons that these numbers could be like that. And the other piece is, that just because the data looks like this does not necessarily indicate causality, right? Oftentimes, students who are just very academically strong will be planning ahead, will be taking tests early, and will also be really strong in those tests. So it also could very well be that some of these students who submitted tests were just academically very strong students. And the other piece is that some of the students who, don't submit tests are definitely going to be students with weaker scores, and they may also just have been weaker students. So it's hard to kind of suss out exactly why, but you can see that there's a lot of nuance here with how different schools actually use the test scores.
Outstanding, Kelsey. Thank you. It's such fantastic data. And of course, we'll need to continue to monitor it as there's still so much unpredictability, as moving forward with this pandemic. So as Omicron and new variants continue to cause that uncertainty, your planning is going to require extra flexibility, but really the core and anchor of that planning is goal setting, knowing yourself and what you want to accomplish over the summer. So in terms of what you need to know about summer, we'll mention it and reiterate it again, that summer planning in a pandemic is tricky. It's continuing to impact in-person activities. I think that, we're still kind of trying to feel out with this new wave with Omicron, how that's going to impact the coming, summer programs, certainly on campus programs. There's a lot of schools right now, colleges that are virtual. So, we recommend flexibility and we recommend scheduling ahead as best you can, but having kind of all of those pieces in mind: health and safety, travel plans, in-person activities, and then also setting yourself up both with in-person options, that you're interested in, whether it's a community organization or a pre-college program on a campus, and also remote options that you feel excited about and interested in. And as more information comes out, then you can make a better decision. But kind of having contingency plans is really important when thinking about summer and trying to plan out so far ahead. So next, in terms of thinking about how to use each of your summers, there's a lot of ways that you can utilize, your summers, and we already are seeing in the chat, different ways that you can do it. But we recommend thoughtfully that's the most important thing, and really thinking about yourself and your situation and your interests and your goals to kind of coming to a decision about how to utilize it. So to start, you can explore. And again, we think that it's important to note that you focus on this earlier in your high school career as possible, so that you have time to develop this interest, or, maybe cross out things that you think you might be interested in. And then, you do a pre-college program or something and it doesn't pique your interest as much, and now it's time to pivot. But you really do want to be thinking about expanding yourself, your self-knowledge, your interests, in building on your strengths. And you may be thinking, well, how do I do that? Besides maybe going to a program? Well, internet research and looking up, college majors, looking up, the issues that you care about in your community and what organizations might be doing work in that area. Maybe look at some potential networking. Maybe your parents know somebody who has a really cool job that you think sounds interesting. Have a conversation with them, find out where they went to college and what they might have done to set themselves up. Of course, doing some reading as well. And then finally, some summer programs. So those are kind of a variety of ways to explore your interests and begin to kind of piece together what your future might look like. Of course, academic coursework. We find that there's a lot of students that really take advantage of the time to either get ahead with advanced classes, or, at schools where, spots for courses are at a premium and you have multiple classes that you want to take in your junior year or senior year, that kind of taking some of the classes over the summer that you need to graduate are going to knock those out and then create that additional space for you to take more classes. And then certainly, any special interest courses that follow up on an interest or of yours, whether it's marketing or a design course or an art course, both to help you, develop that interest and that passion, but also to signal to colleges that you have some experience in that area and that you know what you're getting into. Of course, we've talked about it, but test preparation, this is a time to be thinking about it. If you're a rising senior or a rising junior, it may be time to take a test. It may be time to get out there and actually, try your hand and then make some planning and contingency plans for how you're going to continue to test in the fall. Or if you are, a sophomore, maybe it's time to be exploring potential prep options as well. But also it could be a time to be exploring, a college list and how test optional may weigh into those, which schools you're interested in and what their test optional policy is. And then that could ultimately, create your plan as to whether you're going to test, put a lot of time and effort into prep or not. And then finally, for rising seniors, it is time to really do the work with applications. We find that if students really wait until the fall to do their applications, they're going to be absolutely buried. You already have a rigorous course schedule for senior year. That's when you take some of your hardest courses. You're usually involved in leadership on campus and have some big roles as the big folks on campus. And certainly you want to have fun and enjoy your senior year as well. And if you really put this time off, then it's going to feel really taxing and stressful. So we recommend, particularly with essays, that you spend some time drafting and brainstorming, getting feedback from your parents or your family or older siblings that went to college. It can take students anywhere from 5 to 25 hours to finish just their very first college essay, like the Common App essay, not, even counting supplements. So we really recommend making a plan and beginning a lot of that work in the summer when you have time. So for those of you who are interested in having a more strategic plan for summers and some additional guidance, as well as other key areas, for developing a college plan, we at Colledge offer families early start plans. These strategic plans help infuse your time with our expertise and support. Specifically, our plans present students with an academic plan for the coming years, options for summer programs tailored to their interest areas, an initial college list based on kind of their ideal college experience, suggestions for majors and potential careers, and local opportunities to get involved in your community and build your resume. Our goal is to expand your family's knowledge base early on in the process before you get your applications and essays in the spring of junior year and fall of senior year. So if this sounds like something that could interest you or really help you in kind of your goals with college, please don't hesitate to reach out to us to schedule an initial meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tim. And I think that advice to just keep in mind, seniors, not to wait until fall of senior year, which is actually something that a lot of people do. So we want to talk about one student as an exemplar for you guys. Brian is somebody that I had the honor of working with for many years, actually, for a couple of years before he became a senior and actually went into his application process. I honestly couldn't be prouder of his success. We started working together when he was a sophomore, already a fantastic student, great musician, had some lovely involvement and had kind of dabbled in some of his musical stylings and his great potential there. And I want to say that I think one of the keys to Brian's success is his natural authenticity. He really, even as a younger student, he had already become a member of the LA Children's Chorus. He'd been involved in a couple of performances through LA Opera. And this is not a student who wants to pursue music as a major, right? But he really did it just because he loved it. So I want to talk to you a little bit about Brian. You can see that he is a very strong student. He has a 3.97 overall cumulative, unweighted, phenomenal, right? Phenomenal GPA and transcript, great ACT score. He had a lot of rigor on the transcript with several AP courses, and he had some great AP scores as well. A lot of involvement. You can see with LACC, he created his own program. We're going to talk a little bit about our work with him in a moment, but you can see a little bit about what his profile kind of looked like. So how did we work with him? When the pandemic hit, some of his programs were, like so many, stalled out, right? And he was a singer. He was involved in this great LACC, the choral program, very well-known one. And that's something that isn't so easy to do when you're doing it virtually. So he was really looking for something to give back. He didn't really know what to do, and he didn't have a lot going on, as so many students didn't during the beginning of the pandemic. So as a first step, I actually told him to look inwards, to look at his passions, to look at which of the activities he could no longer participate in he was missing. And, as he gave it some thought, he identified one. He'd had some involvement as a volunteer earlier with an elderly living community locally here before the pandemic, and that's what he really zeroed in on. He really felt for some of these older folks that became kind of stranded on an island, unable to see their friends and families. And this particular one had cultural significance for him. And so what I did was, knowing his history as a choral singer, I told him, hey, why don't you go bring together some of your choral friends, create a program, connect back with that community, and you don't have to do it in person, right? You can do something as simple as having 3 or 4 of your friends singing in quartets and doing some little performances for this elderly community to really make them feel connected to youth and for you to feel connected to them again. He loved that idea. He took it, he ran with it. He even took it to the next level. He didn't just stop at his LACC friends, his Los Angeles children's choir friends, but he recruited his friends who were actors and magicians and dancers, as well as, of course, other singers. And in the end, not only was Brian able to really make a difference to a community that mattered profoundly to him, but he was even written up in the community's newsletter, which was a really exciting moment. And he spent a lot of his essays writing about that. This is really incredible. So that was in the summer, actually between sophomore and junior year, and then into junior year. So we had him even up the game further with applying to Interlochen, which is a really well-known program. It's an intensive vocal program. So he did that over the summer, this past summer, as well as continuing some of his other stuff. You can see that then when we worked with him as a senior, he had a really great balanced list of colleges. He's had some fantastic early results, not in the least of which was regarding his early decision school. And I want to talk to you about that because that's another piece that was a really fantastic win for him. He was kind of weighing between Northwestern and Stanford applying early decision. And so what I did was I told him, hey, go visit. He had a block of time given to him by his school in the fall, and he went and he visited both campuses. He was thinking of visiting a ton of campuses, but I recommended to him that he really just focus in on those 2 and evaluate, how does he feel? What did he love more? Is he really in love with one over the other? And when he came back, he was just on fire. He really fell in love with actually both programs. And so I helped him make a really logical decision, which was, even though he was a legacy student at Stanford and really did like it, Northwestern has a pretty unbeatable global program, environmental sciences program, and vocal program, of course. And so I recommended, hey, let's go for ED at Northwestern. It's the easier school to get into, and you love the 2 equally. This one has a little bit better programming for you, and he did. And so excited to say that he was admitted to his first choice early decision school, and he will be attending Northwestern in the coming fall. So I just want to, honestly, folks, one of the things about this arts outreach program that we helped him develop is that this is actually the kind of thing that really can get colleges excited, right? Where it is not only incredibly authentic, which we've been talking about, but it's completely unique because it's something that is really made by the student for something specific, and it was aimed towards helping the community. So just wanted to kind of walk you through an example of how this can apply and what kind of a difference both counseling, but also using your summers intentionally can make.
Outstanding. Thank you for sharing, Kelsey. Yeah, it's so exciting, Brian's news and his story, how far he came to get to his goals. So the next section, we want to walk through 3 sample summer programs. Often we find that missed opportunities during the summer months usually happen just due to a simple lack of information. There really are so many excellent opportunities and programs out there. Case in point, we recently did research for a student who was interested in service abroad and at some point training to become an EMT. And we were able to find an amazing service-based international EMT certification program based in Colombia that students under 18 were eligible for. So trust me, no matter how unique the interest or desire, there is something out there for everyone. But having a sense of the different types of programs and opportunities that you could choose from should help you narrow down what you're looking for. So let's start with kind of the pre-college, either on-campus or virtual programs, one we'll highlight here is the Summer at Brown, their Brown Environmental Leadership Lab. You can see this is for their Rhode Island program, and they have really cool opportunities to get students out into the field in stunning and enriching locations. So you can see the Rhode Island one here, but they also have a Florida Keys trip as well as a trip to Alaska. And the real goal with a program like this is one to, get a chance for students to interact with other students and other kids that are passionate about this subject, for example, the environment, and develop a little bit of a cohort. Certainly these programs emphasize a balance of development of knowledge in sort of an academic sense, as well as skills and attitudes, in order to kind of make significant change and bring those skills back to their high school community and build on it towards college. And then Brown, the Environmental Leadership Lab, for example, they also have some cool deliverables, including coming up with an action plan based on an environmental issue that they care about and steps to actually implement it when they come back. So it's an enrichment program and an opportunity. But what's cool about a lot of these pre-college programs is that there's a lot of variety in what they offer. These sort of, in the field programs that actually get a kind of a mix of both travel and academics and skill building. There's a lot of programs like that out there. There's opportunities to take really cool classes for credit through a university. And what's great about that is, there's so much diversity in the style of a course catalog for college versus what you take in high school. At high school, you're taking US history in your junior year. In the catalog, of courses at Brown, you might find World War I and World War II changes in technology between the periods, right? And so you have kind of that real in-depth study. And then also, you'll have programs that are designed specifically at skill building and less of this travel. So you want to take a look at, some colleges that you're interested in and whether they offer pre-college programs in an area of interest for you. Kelsey's now going to talk about an enrichment opportunity as well.
So much, Tim. And just to add to this, a lot of the benefit of these pre-college summer programs is that many of them actually do offer college credit, right? So you'll get a transcript, you'll get a grade, and there's kind of a bonus there. Not only do you get to get on that campus and see what it's like to be a student, but you get some credit out of it, which is fantastic. So as Tim said, the next type of opportunity is an enrichment opportunity. So this is more targeted towards something that you would really like to develop in yourself. So I wanted to highlight this particular one, which is Mastering Leadership through the National Student Leadership Conference. And there's a couple of reasons I chose this one to highlight. First of all, leadership is definitely something that's a buzzword, right? It's something that everybody is hearing about, that colleges are looking for. And this is all about developing those skills and being able to bring your natural strengths forward and shine in a larger forum. So it really is that depth of understanding of who you are, what you have to offer, and it's always applicable no matter what career path you choose. NSLC is a fantastic nationwide organization that offers a variety of enrichment opportunities, not just leadership stuff, although it's very well known for its leadership programs. For not only high school students, but middle school students too, right? It's never too early to start expanding on and exploring who you are. So they have enrichment opportunities from everything from government and law to business to STEM, to art and design, to, of course, leadership, to computer science, for students who are in grade 6 all the way up through grades 12. And they're really targeted for those specific students. What's great about them as well is that they do have summer programs, but they also have other programs that are very meaningful that can go throughout the year. So if you're the type of student who is really looking to expand yourself, get to know yourself better, develop a skill in a way that is centered in leadership, centered in being a student, then NSLC is a fantastic set of offerings to explore.
Excellent. And finally, the last sort of type of opportunity to take advantage of over the summer is service learning in your community. So we'd like to highlight an organization locally in Pasadena that really works to serve the homeless population and at-risk people in the community through a variety of services and initiatives. What I really like about this program is that they have multiple initiatives, including a women's room, street outreach, eviction prevention and rental assistance, a food pantry, and bad weather service. And so we like to, have students think about the why with some of these programs. So the women's room might be a really cool initiative to help if you are interested in gender issues and, helping women that are at risk in your local community. Someone who's interested in learning more about housing and homelessness and sort of contracts around rental and rental agreements could really enjoy the eviction and prevention and rental assistance and learn more about kind of this really important thing that is thrust on us when we're adults that we don't really have a lot of training for. Someone who has an interest in food scarcity and food equity and nutrition could really enjoy spending time in the food pantry, which is set up like a little neighborhood market for folks that are at risk. So thinking about your interests and issues that you care about, whether it's environmental issues, clean water, homelessness, and really taking that and thinking about organizations in the community that are tackling those issues is a really good place to start. I also recommend looking for organizations that, have a clear track record of having done work in the community, of working with volunteers consistently, of having kind of a good volunteer pipeline or good support for volunteers to make sure that you are working with folks that are going to value your time and have really interesting and important things for you to do that are going to benefit you and your interest in your resume. And then finally, we like highlighting Friends Indeed as an organization that has a variety of initiatives so that you can think about where your interest and your why might fit in. But certainly, depending on your schedule, if you're really busy, and don't have a lot of time to commit consistently to an organization, then looking for groups that maybe have one-off days of service or one day a month where they do something and you can pencil it into your calendar is going to be great for students that have busier schedules and just need kind of to have a consistent time where they can go and do some volunteering, but they can't commit a lot more hours weekly.
Such a great organization, Tim, and service for students, and I think for all of us, it's such an important piece. And of course, it's something that colleges look for. It's actually another form of leadership, really showing that you're thinking about the world outside of yourself, that you're aware, and showing what is it that you're aware of, what is it that you care about, right? So it's not that Friends Indeed has a wonderful variety, as Tim was going through, but it might not be the right thing for everybody. So you want to think about what are the issues in the world that bother you? What are the things that you would like to spend your time trying to benefit for, trying to fight for the benefit for? That's again where that authenticity piece comes in. But more importantly than that, that's when you're really going to get something out of it as a student. And parents, that's really what you want to look for, right? Is where is your student passionate and where can you direct them based on that passion? So as we head towards wrapping up tonight, we are going to save time for questions and answers. I do want to go through kind of my top 10 summer tips, and we will be sending you this as a kind of a PDF sheet after the webinar. So for everybody who attended tonight, you'll get this as kind of a giveaway from us. The number one tip is to certainly use your summers to get ahead in school. Students, your number one job is to be an incredible student, right? Is to get the best grades that you can in the hardest classes that you can get them. Does that mean that you should take every single AP that your school offers? No, it does not mean that, right? It means pay attention, again, lean into what classes you love, what classes get you excited, what classes you notice you go home and you do more research about, or you find out more about a particular author or whatever it might be, and then challenge yourself in those courses. So number one, use your summers to get ahead in school. Number two, another great way to use your summers is to create or update your resume. And I'm not talking about doing activities. I'm talking about actually creating a physical resume or maybe a virtual one. So this is something that you're going to use certainly when you apply to college, but it's going to be something that you use beyond that, right? You might apply for an internship or potentially a job. And so spending some time to capture how you've been spending your time outside of class is a really great way to use your summer. Number three, as Tim kind of mentioned earlier, journaling. This is something that we're seeing as a huge trend. Believe it or not, the essays that you need to write, that you need to sit down and write as you're moving into senior year, are not really very much like the essays you've been asked to write and trained to write and learned to write throughout high school. They're very different. They're about you. They're not processing out your personality. It's all about showing your personality and what's important to you. So one of the best ways you can prepare for that is actually to just journal. Focus on the things that give you joy, focus on the things that are really hard, focus on the things that are just going on for you to develop your voice in writing. Number 4, deepen into what you already do. Lean into those passions. Listen to what you get excited about, and then take it a little further in the summer when you have time. Number 5, along those lines, always consider creating your own project. Schools really appreciate this because it shows them something about the quality of the student, that the student is not just somebody who will take what they are offered, but somebody who's going to take it a step further and really create something that's their own, who's not satisfied with a status quo. That innovation really goes a long way, because no matter what you create, it's going to be completely unique if you create it. Number 7, and this is really important, give back. Whether giving back means giving back to your school, giving back to just your family, to your friends, to your community, to your city, or even bigger than that. This is a time when, as a community, as a nation, as a world, we're facing so much difficulty, and schools are looking to see that you, as a younger generation student, are seeing, okay, I've got to take the torch. I'm going to have to run with this. This is going to be my world, and I need to change it. So just giving back a little bit is one way to show colleges that you get that this is a piece of your responsibility. Number 8, certainly explore colleges. And if you're starting early, even if you're a junior right now, it's a great time to just dip your toe in the water, to begin to, kind of try different colleges on and see how they feel. So for example, I always recommend that students start locally. It's a great way to get your feet on the ground on a campus and see what it's like. Even if you want to go to college away from home, you can still get a lot of information. You can go to a school that's really small maybe and see, like, how does this size feel for me. You can go to a larger school. Like if you're in LA, you could go visit USC or UCLA, very well-known schools. Maybe you know that they're not for you, but see, what does this type of school feel like to you? And that can give you a lot of information. Number 9, connect with colleges, connect with mentors, connect with programs. Take everything a step further, really connect with the people that you have, maybe had classes with, and see how you can carry that to the next level. And number 10, for my soon to be rising seniors, summer is the time for essays and applications. And I'm going to just repeat what Tim said earlier. If you start, and what I said earlier, if you start headed into fall of senior year, you are welcoming a veritable avalanche of stress and, just a kind of traffic jam of stuff you've got to do. So if you start early, we start our students actually in March, thinking about their colleges. If you start early, you can really spread that process out, end up with better essays, end up with better outcomes in the end. And so, that's just something that I want to highlight for everybody here.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Kelsey. It's such a awesome list, and I'm really excited that our attendees this evening are going to have a chance to get this list in PDF form and have it to reference as they continue to build towards summer. So as we come to the end of our talk this evening, we want to thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I want to make sure that all of you are getting access to our wonderful free community resources. So please make sure to follow us on Facebook and all of our social media profiles. If you felt that tonight was helpful and believe that having access to these free resources is valuable, please consider sharing this content with anyone that you think could benefit. Additionally, we'd like to encourage you to stay tuned for our next Colledge Talk. It's called The Great Testing Debate, and it's coming up on February 20th. This talk is designed for students and families who are curious about how the pandemic may continue to impact testing. Obviously, we touched on it a little bit tonight, in coming cycles, and want knowledge and resources to make a testing plan for the coming years. So I'm going to put the link in the chat box again for anyone who might have missed it earlier. So make sure that you sign up to reserve a spot. And for all of you who have been following along with the Live with Colledge series, we are so excited because we have so many fantastic topics that we'll be covering in 2022. So be sure to check back and follow us on social media to see about upcoming events and topics. And finally, for any of you who would like to watch any of our previous talks, you can find our archives at the link that I'm going to put into the chat box now on our website. So please feel free to share with your friends and community. So now I'd like to move us to questions and answers, and we've already got some really great questions, really interesting ones that have come in the chat. Kelsey, why don't we start with this? We had a question that came in that asked, if you attend a summer course at a college that is on the list of schools that you want to apply to, and maybe even more specifically, a college that's really competitive, a highly selective school where, folks are thinking like any leg up, like what can I do? Will the college look at this favorably if you attend one of their programs?
That's a fantastic question, Tim, and to our attendee who asked it, it's a really common question. And the answer is it depends. It really depends on the school. There are certainly some intensive summer programs on college campuses that the school really likes to see, and they can see, oh yeah, okay, this is a student who has shown it's a type of demonstrated interest, who knows what we're all about, and then who still wants to come back and apply, especially if you're then applying in early decision or early action. But there are also lots of schools who won't really consider that. And actually, that's going to be more applicable at the very highly selective level, where there are, a lot of the Ivy League schools in Stanford who offer summer programs that are pretty open to lots of people. And I can tell you at many of these programs, it's not necessarily going to make a difference to getting you in if you attend the summer program. So although if you are really interested in a school and you really are excited about their summer program, I say go for it. I also would hesitate to recommend that you go to a summer program at a school just because you're hoping it's going to up your chances, because more often than not, I would say it doesn't really make that kind of a difference.
Excellent. Great information. We had another question that came in earlier that was sort of asking, like, weighing two options. Is it better to spend summer working, gaining some money, some work experience, or advancing in academics? And I think we could maybe broaden the question even a little bit and think about, is there a best way to spend the summer, whether it's working, whether it's doing classes, whether it's doing a program or service learning? Is there really sort of a ranking or like a really best way to do it from your perspective, Kelsey?
Absolutely not. I think it depends on each unique individual person, their case, their needs. For example, if we're talking about a student who needs to work to save for college or to support their family, or who has an opportunity to work in a field that they anticipate wanting to be a part of, then working can be a fantastic way to spend your summer. If you are not that, and you are, a student who is passionate about the arts and has the opportunity to do a fantastic arts program over the summer, then that would definitely be a better option for you. So I don't think it's really fair to say, oh, this is the best way to spend your summers. It's also not the best way to spend your summers just to be in summer school every single summer and not do anything else, unless there's a real reason that you need to do that. And for some students, that's also true, right? So there's not a best way, there's not a worse way. It's all about the thoughtfully that you put in there so beautifully earlier, Tim. Spend your summers thoughtfully. You only have so much time between now, no matter how old you are, and when you, I guess unless you already went to college, and when you apply to college, right? So we know when you're going to apply to college, if we know how old you are now, and you have however much time. So think about that time as like spending your allowance maybe, or spending something else, maybe that's not money, that you have that is finite. And think about using that intentionally. What is the best way for you to spend that time that you're going to get a lot out of, that's going to be really exciting for you?
Outstanding. And I think we have time maybe for one more question here. This is a good one. So, we talked about earlier that you can actually get college credit for courses. We had a question come into the chat. If you get college credit from a course taken at a pre-college summer program, would those credits be accepted by other colleges? Essentially, are they only good at the school that you've taken it at? Or for example, let's say you do a program at the UCs, is that only UC credit, or is it sort of universal credit? No matter where you go, you'll be able to cash it in a sense.
Yeah, it's a really tricky question, right? Because there are certainly some courses that are not going to transfer as a course, right? Like that you know, just because you took a particular course in a summer program and you got college credit for it, doesn't mean that you wouldn't then have to take that course again when you are actually in college. However, you will always get credit for it in the sense that as a high school student, you actually did go to college, you did get college credit for a college level course. They will see that grade and they will consider it on your application.
Outstanding. So thank you for these wonderful questions, and Kelsey, that tremendous insight. I think it served our attendees really well. So in closing, we're going to go ahead and wrap up with a final poll, just gauging a sense of how you enjoyed the talk this evening, what you found most helpful. So Kelsey's going to go ahead and launch that. Thank you all so much for attending, and we really look forward to seeing you at our next event. The poll is now live, so please feel free to put feedback here in the poll.
Thanks so much, Tim. And as all of you, please take some time to give us that feedback. We're always eager to see if we're giving the information that people are eager for. As a group that is trying to reach so many families, that's doing this intense work with students and families, I just want to share a little bit about our resources. Of course, we want you to have access to all of our free community resources. We want you to follow us on Facebook and on social media, follow us on our website. But if you feel like you need more help, we are a group that is very student-centric. We are a group that actually focuses in for students on doing their work in the meetings, and we've created a low homework policy for our students. So they're getting all of their work done pretty much, or most of it, I can't say all, in session or in our signature essay boot camps with essay specialists. And this is designed to help lighten the load for students, right? To not add to their already hefty homework load and time management load with everything that's on their plate. And so I would encourage anybody who's interested to please reach out to the contact link that Tim is going to pop into the chat for us. If you feel like you need more help, or even if you're a family that just feels like you need a little bit of help, we have a couple of plans that are designed just to be light touches, a little bit of a list, a little bit of essay help. So we want to direct you to our website, which we'll put the link into the chat in for briefly in a moment. And we want to just direct you to our plans page to see if there's any way that we can help you and help your family as you move towards the college process. And once again, we just want to thank everybody who attended here tonight. As we're trying to reach as many families and students as we possibly can, we're just really grateful to have everybody here and listening. Please feel free to share our information as you move forward if you have friends or know people who might need a little information about college and college applications. We want to just thank everybody again so much for attending and wish everybody a wonderful rest of their Sunday.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.